When you hear the day of the Lord, what do you picture? A global catastrophe? A sudden rapture? This phrase, used over 20 times by the Old Testament prophets and throughout the New Testament, is much bigger than a single event. It describes any time God intervenes dramatically in human history to judge evil and bring salvation to his people. Understanding it reveals the pattern of God's work in the world. The prophets, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Joel, used the day of the Lord to refer to real historical events that were coming soon to their audiences. The day of the Lord was often the judgment of a specific nation or city. For example, Isaiah used it to describe God's judgment on Babylon, Isaiah chapter 13, and Joel used it to describe an invasion of locusts and a devastating military attack. In these historical events, God was demonstrating his sovereignty. He was using a natural disaster or an enemy nation to carry out his justice against sin and to call his people to repentance. These events were a mini judgment that foreshadowed the ultimate final judgment. The prophets consistently described this day as a day of wrath, a day of darkness and gloom, showing its serious, destructive nature. It was always a sudden, unavoidable, and complete disruption of normal order. The New Testament, particularly the Apostle Peter, uses the day of the Lord to point toward its final, ultimate fulfillment. This is the event most people think of when they hear this phrase. In 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10, Peter says, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be exposed." This describes a cosmic judgment, the final destruction of the current earth and the judgment of all humanity. This final event serves as the conclusion of all history, leading to the creation of a new heaven and a new earth, in which righteousness dwells. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 13. It is the definitive separation of good from evil and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. Peter emphasizes that it will come like a thief, unexpectedly. This is why Yeshua repeatedly urges us to be ready and watchful. So, whether the day of the Lord is a part judgment on a nation or the future, final judgment of the world, the lesson for us is the same: imminence of God's justice. It reminds us that God is an active judge who will not indefinitely tolerate sin. Every historical judgment is a merciful warning to turn to Him before the final one. 2. A call to holy living. Since everything is going to be destroyed and renewed, Peter asks, what sort of people ought you to be in lives of holiness and godliness? 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 11. Knowing God will intervene should motivate us to live pure lives today, right now, where you are. The promise of hope. The day of the Lord, while bringing judgment, ultimately leads to full salvation and restoration for believers. It's the day when all pain, suffering, and evil are finally removed. The day of the Lord is not just a warning about fire. It's a great promise of a perfect, righteous future. Live today in light of the fact that Yeshua, the righteous judge, will return as King of Kings, Lord of Lords.